I want to thank Oasis for inviting me to do this talk. I want to thank my partner in crime, Cynthia, for helping with the technologic parts of this and to correct things when I'm wrong. And mostly I want to thank you for being here. It's never good to start with an apology, which is exactly what I'm going to do. I need to apologize for my voice. I do not have COVID-19, yay, but I have really bad asthma. When you start asking about COVID-19, these are the two best places to start. There's so much information about this. Some of it's politicized, some of it's inaccurate, some of it's accurate. For New Mexico, start with the Department of Health site. That's cv.nmhealth.org. It has a lot of good information when you have practical questions like, what do I do? If you think you have COVID-19, call your doctor, or call whatever licensed healthcare professional you are using in lieu of a doctor. And if that doesn't work, there is this hotline at the Department of Health. There's an overriding theme here that is, I don't know. And that's true for many things. And then there's we don't know. And that's also true for many things. To give you some perspective, no one has seen anything like this at least for 100 years. There have not been this many people on the planet, even when the influenza pandemic of 1918 and 1920 struck. So we don't know. We make do because we have to. You're going to hear that throughout the healthcare community. Everywhere in the entire world, every sector is going to be, we don't know what to do, and we're going to make do because we have to. You're going to hear nothing but best guesses in the absence of answers. Certainly in the science world, we are trying to do in a matter of weeks, maybe months, what ordinarily takes years. And I don't want to scare you, that's important, but I'm not really good at sugarcoating, so that isn't going to happen either. Perhaps most importantly, 75% or more of what I'm going to say today, it'll probably be wrong in 2 hours, okay? It'll probably be wrong in 2 hours. All right, here's my disclaimer because I am a medical doctor. If you attend past this point, you're going to agree and you're going to accept and understand these things. And if you don't want to, get out now. Nothing I'm going to say is authoritative, nothing. It's general information only. A lot of it is my inference, what I have observed. Others may have other observations and they could be equally valid. I mean, they're probably not, but they could be. I've made the best efforts to give you the information as it's known today. I can be wrong, and I guarantee you it'll change. Most importantly, nothing in this talk is medical advice. Do not rely on it for your own healthcare needs, and only your doctor or licensed person can advise you on what to do. There are a lot of things I'm not going to cover. I'm not going to approach the financial and economic catastrophes that are going to last. And there's a sea of misery. I'm talking to you with the assumption you're in the Oasis group, 60 plus, generally healthy, but I'm not going to talk about, and I can't, all of the other people and all the conditions. My goals today, I want to demystify the terminology because there's a lot of terminology and it's getting messy. I want to deputize you. I want to turn you into citizen epidemiologists so that you understand the pandemic, and mostly so that I can arm you as the citizen soldiers who are going to defend not only yourself, but your family, your friends, my colleagues, the doctors in real practice. I'm going to give you some thoughts on how to prepare for the next 6 weeks, which are going to be, I'm hesitant to use the word hell on earth, but that's not a bad way of looking at it, and give you some don'ts and do's. I call them don'ts and do's because don'ts are usually more important than do's, and how we might win this war, at least win the battles. In fact, I'm going to go to that now. I'm going to tell you the end of the story before I develop the story. Many of you are old enough to remember Rosie the Riveter, and how the country had to marshal itself to fight World War II when we weren't the ones in the battlefield. That's what we need to do now, and that's what you need to do now if you're not already doing it, and I hope you are all already doing it. Now, you don't need to climb the top of a skyscraper and rivet things. You need to stay home. You need to stay home. And I'm going to say things that, because we are all in a high-risk age group, I'm in 3, and you probably are in more than 1 as well, meaning you're over 60 plus you have something else. By staying home, I mean, you're not going to grocery stores. You're not going into pharmacies. You're not visiting friends. You're not going to relatives. You're not dropping by Oasis to say, hey, Cynthia, how are you doing today? Your job is to save the lives of others. Now, that also means saving your life, but you want to save the lives of others. You're going to become citizen public health officers. You're going to be citizen warriors, and you're going to do that. How hard is it? It can be hard. Stay home. So that's what, by the time we're done here, that's what I want you to think. And now I'm going to give you the reasons you're going to think that way. First, prepare yourself. I'm now training you as junior epidemiologists. So let's go through some terminology. Medicine, being a doctor, that's the study of disease as it affects an individual, one at a time. Epidemiology is the study of disease as it affects entire populations. In fact, that's the word. Epi means upon, and demos means people, upon the people. And now, technical glitch, deglitching, please, there you go. There's so many terms out there. Let's set the framework. You'll hear terms like germs and microbes. You'll pick up a product and it'll say kills 90.9% of germs or microbes. You'll see things on the internet. For all intents and purposes, think of 3. And we're not going to talk about molds at all. So think about bacteria and viruses. Think about them as being alive or kind of alive. A bacteria is fully alive. It can live on its own. It has all the machinery it needs to obtain energy, but most importantly, to reproduce. Now, we talk about a virus being alive or dead, but really it's inactive or it's active. It either can infect you or it doesn't. A virus does not have the machinery necessary to obtain energy and reproduce. A bacteria survives on its own. It grows on surfaces. It'll grow in a petri dish. A virus can survive on its own for a while, but it can't grow. It can only grow inside a host, you, me, animals. You'll see on the internet all sorts of nonsense about hand sanitizers, and they'll do petri dishes and show, oh, look, it's, there's no growth here. It's not a virus. That's only about bacteria and molds. Bacteria, like you and me, have families. So here's a family called the Enterobacteriaceae, entero meaning these are gut bacteria. You probably know some of their members. E. coli, which causes disease, and Salmonella, which causes disease. Viruses have families too. For example, herpes virus is a family of viruses, a whole bunch of them. Varicella zoster is the virus that causes varicella. You know it as chickenpox, or herpes simplex that causes cold sores. So viruses have families and species. The family we're interested in is the coronavirus family. There's no such thing as the coronavirus. What we're dealing with now is a coronavirus, and it comes from this family. Now this family, this butt ugly family, has 7 members, 4 old ones, and they cause the common cold. There are many others that cause the cold, like rhinoviruses, but they cause the common cold. And we talk about, oh, there's a bug going around. That's a mini epidemic called an outbreak. Often a coronavirus, one of these 4. Why don't we die? These coronaviruses have coexisted with us for hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years. So we're basically immune. oh, they'll tweak themselves a little and we'll get a little sick, but our bodies take them out right away. They don't kill us. Every once in a while, however, there's a new coronavirus. We call it a, excuse me, novel coronavirus. Pretend you're not seeing this. Novel has a very specific meaning in our language. It means that it has never before, ever, lived inside the human host. Never, ever. The virus we're dealing with today has never, ever lived in a human host prior to December of last year, 4 months ago. There have been other novel coronaviruses. About 20 years ago, we had this severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus that caused the disease SARS. About 10 years ago, the Middle East respiratory syndrome, when a coronavirus presumably jumped from a camel to a human. 4 months ago, just 4 months ago, the severe acute respiratory syndrome, that's SARS, coronavirus 2, or SARS-CoV-2, appeared. Now I talk about the jump. This is theoretical, nobody knows for sure. But we believe, or it's very likely, that the SARS-CoV-2 virus lived in bats for a long time, existed, went through lots of genetic mutation. I won't go into why that's so likely in this virus. For you doctors, it's a positive sense, single-stranded RNA virus. And it jumped to this little creature called the pangolin. Now the pangolins, which live in Southeast Asia and Africa, are nocturnal. And they generally do not come into contact with human beings until human beings say, let's eat them and use their scales for medicine. And so they came into contact with human beings, the viruses are replicating, and we believe what happened is the virus then jumped, meaning it is now able to infect the human host, you and me. This happens all the time, by the way. Influenza is an animal disease that lives in birds. It simply has jumped and continues to jump back and forth between chickens, pigs, and us. This is what's called the coronavirus, but you now know it is a coronavirus, and its name is the SARS-CoV-2. And it looks like this. On the left, you see some lung tissue, and on the right, that's the coronavirus. You can't see it in real life. It's 1/254,000th of an inch, but under an electron microscope, that's what it looks like. Why do we call it coronavirus? Well, somebody said, here's a picture of the sun. And there's the sun, and there's some solar flares and some coronal mass ejections, and the corona, and it looks like that. So that's why it is the coronavirus. It has nothing to do with the beer. Although I wouldn't blame you if you're drinking a lot of Corona beer right now. Let's distinguish between the virus and its name, another confusing point. A virus leads to a disease. So the varicella-zoster virus leads to the disease varicella, which we call chickenpox. The virus, influenza A, leads to the disease influenza or flu. So it's very convenient. The virus sounds just like the disease. Well, yeah, until we get to this. So SARS-CoV-2, the virus, leads to the disease called the coronavirus disease 19. Why 19? Because it was first determined, blah, 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 pretend I didn't say that, first found in 2019. Coronavirus disease 19, or COVID-19 for simplicity. So SARS-CoV-2, the virus, causes the disease COVID-19, which I'll probably just call COVID. Now, we're taking a little mini break. To become junior epidemiologist, there's really only one thing you need to know. You need to learn the exponential curve. We use the term exponential in everyday language colloquially, meaning it's a very specific meaning. I'm going to show you what that means, but the question is, The question is, when do we get an exponential curve? Well, these are the general conditions. First, we have no immunity to a new virus, brand new virus. This virus has to infect everybody, but not carry many. That way we spread it. Everybody has to spread it to at least 2 others. The virus has to incubate a long time. So the word incubation means virus comes in, lands in you, sits there replicating, but you don't know, but you can spread it. So it's incubating. It's helpful if when you have symptoms. And we'll learn later, you can be infected. Well, it turns out this virus is perfect for that. So this is what an exponential curve looks like. What you need to understand is that to a biologist, a virologist, an epidemiologist, this is a law that is the same as the law of gravity to a physicist. At the very beginning, it doesn't look like much is happening. That's because things are doubling from small numbers. 2 becomes 4. But wait a minute, those other 2 are still 6. So it's not really 2 becomes 4. It's 2 becomes 6. Now those 4 become 8, but wait, it's those 8 plus the first 4 plus the 2. So it's going like that, but in the beginning part, it looks very slow. If you were a physicist, here's what you would be saying. You're looking at a guy and you know that a piano has dropped out of a plane from 10,000 feet. The guy on the ground is looking up saying, I don't see anything. The physicist is saying, here's the thing, gravity, it's not a good idea, it's the law. That piano's coming down, move. I don't see anything. I don't see anything. That's the trick of the exponential curve. That's what viruses do to get us. And indeed, that was not a theoretical exponential curve. That is the exponential curve that's happened to the world. This is the world. At the end of February, end of January, here we are at the end of January, a month or so after it appeared in China. I don't know if my cursor is showing. There's a annotation thing here I'm going to try. Let me see if I can get that to work. Let me try that. Hold on. I'm trying to spotlight there. All right. Let's see if that works. I don't know. So here we are at the end of January. Here we are in March. And this virus is just kicking butt. The problem is when we get to here, it suddenly takes off. And indeed, in late March, it took off. And here we are in April. If you want to look at it another way, by February, you as the junior epidemiologist, and me as, I'm not an epidemiologist, I'm an epi nerd, but real epidemiologist, everyone knew this thing's coming. In March, the world, certainly the United States, pretty much still in denial. Now in mid-March or so, some began to see it. Now we're still late, but better than most. And New Mexico's in this boat. I mean, it's great to say we're proactive and all, and we are much better than most, but we came in March. And so I'll show you how that had an effect. But even though we are here in April, it is still the case that only some understand that this virus is spreading exponentially, and the only way to stop that or lessen it at this point is if we don't spread the virus. This is Spain, one of the hardest hit countries in the world. As a percentage of its population, it has lost a huge percent of population. They have trucks bringing bodies into crematoria working 24/7, okay? And still, they issue fines because people are not staying home. This isn't an insult. This is how the human brain works. If we can't see it, we don't get it. We can see a Nazi, we can see the Hun, we can see the evil. We can't see this virus. So this is where we are in the world. Where are we in And by the way, let me go to one other thing about the world experience. You'll hear this said all the time. Most people recover. Absolutely true, and great news. Look at this. Now, these are outcomes, meaning people who get the virus have one of two outcomes. You either recover or you die. It's obviously more complicated, but you're either going to recover or you're going to die. So let's just look at those who've recovered or died. Good news, 80% recovered, yay. 21% died. That's a true statement, most recover. But compare that to the flu, where we have immunization and we have antibodies. In the high-risk group, you and me, most recover means 99.2% recover and 0.8% die. So it is still a remarkably bad, SARS-CoV-2 is a remarkably bad virus. Where are we in the United States? This is as of yesterday. In a month or so, more or less, a month or so, we've gone from nothing to 308,000 cases in a month. The dotted line is like the worst case scenario, so we're better than that. But all of these others, all of the other, you can't see the names, but this is every other country in the world down here. We are, number one, we made America great again. We are the fastest rising and the most number of cases on the planet Earth. What are we doing in New Mexico? Well, we're still early, and so we're at that flat part of the curve, but we are in the exponential curve. You know, wouldn't it be great if there were a way to be able to look at that early part of the curve and know if things are getting bad? Well, there is a way. It's a magic way, and we just play with this curve, this axis. Instead of going linear, like we're doing there, what we do is we go what's called a log scale. So we go 10, 100, 1,000. Now we can see what's happening in New Mexico. And this straight line is based on the early cases. And this is the line we would have expected if the governor, mayor, etc., hadn't put something into place. And some of us, not all, some of us are obeying the public health order. And we're starting to see it come off that main line. That's good news. A couple of weeks later, by the way, these are deaths. And it's going to parallel. A couple of weeks later, you can count on it parallel. It's just going to go up. This is sadness. And back in the next month, it's going to be horrifying sadness. Sorry, truth. If we stay on this course, whatever course we stay on, in roughly the next month, think of how little time we're talking about. Our first cases were in March, more or less. Detected cases. We had 100 times more cases that were undetected, maybe 1,000. But between March and April, we're going to probably have 10,000 cases. It's not going to be equally distributed. Some are going to suffer a lot more than others. Here's what's happening in the Navajo reservation. First, you might think, well, they're separated and so they don't get the close contact. No, they live in closely compacted hogans. They go to chapter houses. They go to stores. They meet each other just like anybody meets each other. They have 5 times as many cases per capita there, and their death rate is higher. It's going to hit the poor, the homeless. It's not going to hit us all equally. This is the graph to keep in mind. I'm trying to explain it, and it is a complicated graph, and I'm not going to go through the complicated part. This is the part you recognize. This is the exponent, because you're now epidemiologists, right? This is the exponential rise. And it starts like that. Now, eventually, it doesn't go on forever and ever. It does eventually start flattening out because of things like herd immunity and other things. What we think is going to happen in New Mexico roughly, best guess, is that we're going to see this peak in late April and May. This line, the straight line, is our capacity to deal with it. Healthcare's capacity to deal with it. If you look at the dotted line, you may be happy. Don't. Because what you need to look at is the cloud. That cloud means any outcome in there is equally possible. It's just as likely that we're up here at the top as down here at the bottom. If we're down here at the bottom, we're going to get Corona beers and drink them. If we're up here, we are in big trouble, meaning people won't get care. Bear in mind, that means everybody. If you get a heart attack, stroke, car accident, those don't stop. This is only about COVID. So our job is to take this curve, keep it down, keep it flat as possible. That's our one job as citizen soldiers. And here's how we do it. Stay home. Why does this work? Coronavirus, the disease, COVID-19, the disease, strikes the lungs. How does it get to the lungs? 3 ways. Your mouth, your nose, your eyes. That's it, as far as we know. How does it get in your mouth, nose, and eyes? Well, the direct method is through what's called an aerosol. Prior to 2 days ago, we believed it was through coughing and sneezing. Now we think even talking. That's right. Now I'm about 2 feet away from this camera, but if you were 2 feet away from me, I could be spreading the virus to you. The second way, and it is important, is indirect. Vapor comes out of my mouth, droplets. Gravity pulls it down to a surface. The fancy term is a fomite. Then somebody touches that surface and does that. I've just infected myself. So those are the 3 ways you can get infected. I'm sorry, 2 ways, direct and indirect. Now, right now you're thinking, we all are, I don't want to get infected. Yeah, I'll probably do okay. That's still true, but I don't want this. But I don't want you to think about this woman as you for a couple of reasons, not the least of which is hopefully you don't have transparent skin because that's just disgusting. But think about this is you. You are the spreader, and it's all of us. Don't hate me, but you must assume you are infected if you're going out into public. Now, calm down, as I said, you're probably not really, but you must assume you are. I know what you're thinking. You're an idiot. You know, I feel fine and you're scaring me. I'm pausing for the incredible laughter that I know is happening right now. Well, one, I'm not an idiot. You know, my mother had me tested. But it's actually not scary because what we're learning is that the infection, you may be infected but never have the disease. Think about that. You may have the virus, it may replicate, you may get rid of it. You may never have the disease, but you can still infect others. Perhaps a half of people. In a good study done in Iceland, a beautiful country, by the way, half of people that were infected didn't have symptoms. You might have minor symptoms. Yes, we're all in a high risk group, but if you're healthy and you're active and your immune system strong, you may just have what feels like a flu. The other thing is that people will have this virus and shed it for weeks before they even get a symptom. You don't know, I don't know, we may be one of those. We don't want to hurt others. Most others. There are some exceptions, of course, we all have them. So, to protect others, you must assume you're infected if you go into public. It is now recommended you cover your face if you go out, but mostly don't go out. Fear. You need to flip the conversation in your head from fear to courage. Be afraid. I am afraid. But this guy, some of you have heard it, but you all know who this guy is. And he's not a pro football player. Courage is not the absence of fear, but rather the assessment that something else is more important than fear. So this is courage. Courage is staying home, except for the most absolutely essential trips. And particularly if you live in a city, there are virtually no essential trips. Courage, if you live in a city, is not going into grocery stores unless none of the 3 options that they offer work. We'll talk about those. And it's not going into a pharmacy unless none of the 3 options work. It's not going on walks with people you don't ordinarily live with unless you are 6 feet away. And it's not going to outdoor places if there are a bunch of people around. You don't go to your friend's house. Don't go to your children's house. Don't go to your parents. Don't have people over. Don't drop in a quick hello. Hey, how you doing? Don't get a haircut. I mean, you think this is bad now. If you go into a grocery store, don't browse. This is a search and destroy mission for you. Know what you want, go in, get out. If you have wipes, wipe down everything and be sure to use hand sanitizer after, if you can find it. Remember what I said at the beginning. This is doing the best we can. And please don't violate the Department of Health, public health order, or city ordinance. Now this sucks. 75% of you will be extroverts, and this is going to kill you. Quarter of you will be introverts like me, and staying at home is no big deal. But you can get in the car. You can drive all around. Just don't get out of the car. You can look at the beauty of New Mexico. Just don't get out of the car. I'm going to tell you about 3 options for grocery shopping. Unfortunately, as I said at the beginning, if you live in the middle of some other place in Albuquerque, Santa Fe, Cruces, you may not have these options. I don't know that I have an answer for you, but you can keep searching for answers. You can get pickup. That is, you put in an order, you get a slot, you drive up there, they'll put it in your trunk. You can get delivery. I just had delivery an hour ago. Now, here's the thing with this. I know Smith's does it, Whole Foods does it, probably others. It's hard. You have to be like going on eBay. You have to get to that website and you have to constantly look for a slot. Well, what else you got to do? You're staying at home, right? It's hard, and don't expect it that day or maybe even that week, so plan ahead. Another option that I just learned about, Smith's does it, maybe others, Smith's, Kroger's does it, is they can ship non-perishables. This is different than delivery. This is using UPS. Go to their site and try to find shipping. Plan for a week ahead, but this is a nice way to get non-perishable canned goods. Things are out of stock. Things are out of stock, but keep looking. Medicines, you can get medicine shipped to you. I only know Walgreens because I'm forced to use Walgreens, but they have an online pharmacy. But if you can't do that, pretty much every pharmacy, the major pharmacies now, have pickup. That's still better than going in the store. Smaller pharmacies, we use one here in town that's great, a little mom and pop place. You call them when you arrive at the pharmacy, you tell them you're in the parking lot, and they'll come in and they'll put it in your trunk for you. It's still better than opening a door, now your hands got infected, walking by people who are coughing, etc. Much better than that. Medical care, don't go anywhere near it. Where do you think the sick people are? Don't go to a hospital. Don't go to urgent care. Don't go to an ER unless someone who is a professional tells you to. Your doctor, the Department of Health hotline, a licensed professional, somebody who's a doctor on telemedicine. Don't go on your own. Take advantage of phone medicine, video medicine. It's coming up rapidly. Now, if you have an ongoing condition where skipping anything is going to hurt you, it doesn't apply to you. If you're in the midst of chemotherapy or anything else where you can't delay, obviously call your oncologist, keep calling, and get your advice there. Now, you may need to go in to continue to get your therapy. So this is not medical advice by any means. I'm just saying in general, if you can stay away from a healthcare entity, stay away from it. That's how you become the citizen soldier show. For the next 6 weeks, think about the 3 faces of COVID. There's the asymptomatic face. These are people, could be you, could be me, you don't know you have it, maybe 50%. We could have it, clear it, fine. Our job, don't infect others. Then there are the stay-at-home symptoms. Now listen very carefully. I am not giving you medical advice about when to stay at home, but I'm telling you what might likely happen. These most commonly are the fever and dry cough. There are many others. You might lose your smell, you might get pink eye, but these are the prominent ones. The key is you are not having trouble breathing. When you stand up, whatever your baseline is, some of us, look at me, if you can get up out of the chair, go to the bathroom, come back, and that's not a problem. You don't have trouble breathing. Then if you are concerned, then you call your doctor or the coronavirus hotline. And they'll give you advice. They'll probably advise you stay home, check your temperature a couple times a day. Remember, there's no treatment. What are you going to do? There's nothing. There's no vaccination. There's no shot. There's no pill. No one's going to be able to do anything for you at this stage if this is where you are. And if you go to a healthcare facility, you are now either infecting others or picking up other diseases. They're still out there. The third face is the you need hospital face. The key here is shortness of breath. Again, I am not telling you what to do. I'm saying that if you call your doctor and get advice, it is important you tell them about shortness of breath. That is when you are probably going to be told you need to care. Now, this you always know. If you're that short of breath, if you have chest pain, if your face is drooping, if you have any of the terrible things that happen otherwise, heart attacks, strokes, other pneumonias, whatever, if you would have called 911, call 911. If you're having an emergency, call 911. Today, that's probably going to act normally. A week, 2, 3, it might be quite a problem. So hunker down. Assume that April through May or June, we don't know, is going to be the hardest hit. This is what you want to plan for. Think about, and I know this is hard, please don't think I'm being flippant, especially if you're living in estancia, if you're living in jail. I know this is hard, but try to find a way to not go out in public. If you can, they're in short supply now, I'm told. If you have a thermometer, and you always should have one, have one. If nothing else, check your temperature a couple times a day. It's a good way to know how you're doing. There are things called pulse oximeters. They're little devices and they slip right over your finger. They're cheap, except they're probably price gouge, but they're cheap. They tell you how you are oxygenating, how much oxygen's getting in your blood. If you have one, it's a good way to tell, are you getting enough oxygen when you feel symptoms? I mean, don't do it every day, but if you're starting to feel symptoms, the reason it's helpful is if you have to call somebody like a doctor, they're going to jump for joy when you tell them, oh, doc, by the way, I have a pulse oximeter. Would you like to know the reading? They'll really appreciate it. As I said, make sure you have your medicines. Most health plans are waiving any of the rules about 90-day refills or you can't refill. Certainly Medicare, Part D has, Blue Cross has, United has, pretty much all of them have. We talk about hand washing. There are a zillion videos about how to use the World Health Organization method. Use that method. Wash your hands anytime you come back from outside. Pick up the mail, wash your hands. Take your dog outside, wash your hands. You can wash your hands several times a day, a couple times a day, once a day. There's no actual rule. If you have hand lotion, feel free to use lotion afterwards to keep them moist. If you have real hand sanitizer, ethanol, ethanol-based hand sanitizer, use it anytime you can't wash your hands. Use the same method that the WHO recommends. Don't worry about them drying out your hands. Purell has been studied. It actually is a moisturizer. But a lot of these homemade things may dry out your hands. Use hand lotion if you have to. Disinfect surfaces regularly. I know it can be hard. You have to find the Clorox wipes or the Lysol wipes or the spray. But particularly bathrooms, kitchens, anything you touch regularly, once a day, doorknobs are a big one. Anything you touch regularly, try to disinfect them with a wipe once a day. Keep moving. Do your home exercises that you're already doing. If you do yoga, do yoga. If you do Tai Chi Chuan, the harder Tai Chi, do that. If you're like me and you do Tai Chi Cha, do that. Try to keep a normal routine. You'll be happy to know I am wearing pants. You should be too. Don't sit around in pajamas. Take your showers, bathe. Try to live a normal routine. You can take online classes. I'm learning to play the piano. I won't be playing it in Carnegie Hall, but I'm learning to play it. There are podcasts, things that the youngsters do, audiobooks. You know, the garage you've been meaning to clear out for 20 years. What else are you going to do? Ignore this stupid term, social distancing. It's a dumb term. What you want to think is isolating from the virus. You can stay social, and you should stay social. Just don't do it in physical proximity. You can talk. Skype, FaceTime if you are smart enough to be on the Apple ecosystem. You can do this, Zoom. This Zoom thing we're doing right now, you can get an account for free and get 2 or 3 buddies and have a 40-minute chat. Just like this, for free. Of course, you'll be hacked, but that's another story. Email. I like to write. I'd rather write than talk. Do email. I could write a letter. You could get a pen pal. Fill out the census. You've got nothing else to do, and this is really critical to New Mexico. It's 3 minutes. Fill out the census. So read, you can cook, watch TV, do games. Just remember, you're her. So if you must go out in public, use a face cover. That's not a mask. Don't use medical masks that my buddies in the field need. I have 2 doctor friends who are COVID positive now. I want them to live. You can help them live. Here's the don'ts. Don't run out of essential prescription medication. Don't fall. Remember, in our age group, falls are our biggest enemy. Don't fall. If you have loose rugs, secure them. Whatever you do, do not get on a ladder right now. Don't trim a bush. Don't clean out the gutter. Now is not the time. It'll wait for 6 weeks. Review what you need to be safe in your bathtub and shower. Now is not the time to risk injuries. Guy on the Lulu's trail broke his leg or whatever. He had EMTs today. He won't in 6 weeks. Don't start strenuous exercises where you're going to tear a rotator cuff. Check with somebody who knows your health condition. If you love skydiving and scuba diving, put it off. Now, for a lot of you, this is the tough one, but try not to get in a bar fight. Please don't fall for scams. They're multiplying faster than the virus. There is no at-home testing. That's a scam right now, all of it. There are unproven hand sanitizers. If the hand sanitizer is an ethyl alcohol or isopropyl alcohol, it's not an alcohol sanitizer. And if it's not 60 to 70%, it's not. There's so many myths and garbage. I could do a whole session on that. Don't fall for it. Don't forget to wash your hands, and don't forget to wash your hands. Keep your hands off your face. Remember, it comes in here, here, and here. I've infected myself And don't pick your nose. Remember, eat, drink, live your life. Here's a big one. Don't forget, every science brain in this entire planet right now, everyone is working on one goal, and that's to get this fixed or better. That's never happened in our lifetime. Every pharmaceutical, every lab, AMRID and the military AMRID labs, probably Sandia, probably Lanel, everyone's working on it right now. Don't forget that. And all it needs is one therapy that lowers the death to make this better. Not that it clears the disease, but to turn it into non-fatal. And the day is a new day. And then in a year and a half, there'll be vaccines. Don't forget, you can make the difference. Don't forget this. Pandemics are an absolutely natural part of the biologic world. They happen all the time. And never forget that. Pandemics always end. Fortunately, so does this talk. Thanks for listening.